it up and do whatever with it.
Yep.
Yeah. So typically, as you know, I will go in and do research, but when I start researching and planning for the conversation, I get like almost like stage fright. So
Really?
I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, Carol, you know what the following your joy means?
Yeah.
You know? So it's one of those things where it's like, um, I think the hardest part of following your joy is getting to the point where you know what that is.
That's exactly what has for the last couple of months I've been talking to several people about that. It's like, what do you love? Well, they've been so busy surviving
Yeah.
that they're not worried about, they're not even thinking about what makes them happy.
Yeah. Well, I actually considered that earlier this morning. I was thinking I need to post something on my page. And I've been so busy, with the traveling and the visitors, and there's more traveling and visiting coming up. And I thought to myself, I would really like to just plant myself here and then just do things around here
Hmm.
because that's where I find joy.
Right.
And so I thought, well, gosh, Carol, you're going to be gone for a couple of weeks. You're going to be, watching your nephews, and you won't be here. So I went
Yeah.
outside and I took some pictures, and I just thought, you know what? I can have small moments of joy. It
Absolutely.
doesn't have to be, yeah, in through the. I mean, there are other things. I mean, everyone has something on their plate or many things on their plate, and
Right.
so and I've spent a long time or a lot of time contemplating, like, things don't always go the way I want them to, you
Yeah.
know? So it's like you could look around and say, gosh, I would really like to ABC, but I can't because, something
Yeah.
always comes in and
Some little
takes your attention
obstacle
away
to,
from
well, and then that's part of the plan too.
you.
You're going to find something along that path that's interesting or
Yeah.
inspiring in some way.
Yeah. And I think that when you messaged me, how about we do follow your joy? And I thought, you know what? That's such a great idea because there's like, let's pretend the scale is like from 1 to 10, right? And
Yeah.
so the 10 is whatever it is that really excites you when you get to, let's say it's white water rafting or something. You're like, every time we
Right.
get to go, it's just, oh my God, I'm so excited for it.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then there's going outside and seeing, ladybugs on a flower. And you're
Yeah.
like, that brings me some sort of joy,
Peaceful, calm joy.
peaceful, calm joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Like today I was out talking to my brother. My brother was here trying to get the mint out of the garden. The mint and the poison ivy because they always grow together.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and I says, "Oh, look, a hawk." And there's a hawk circling over the house. I
yeah.
said, "You're too big for him. He'll get and go away." So he's probably looking for the bunnies. We've got so many bunnies this year.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So your backyard's the grocery store.
Yeah. For the deer and the bird, birds of
Yeah,
prey. And
and the birds of prey.
we have foxes and we have bears and we have deer and all that stuff here. It's nice
Yeah,
living out like this, isn't it? Where you've got some
yeah,
nature around you.
yeah. I mean, it's pretty wonderful. Here, this is the season where apparently the rattlesnakes come out, and so
Hmm.
I haven't been out there, trekking around to witness any of that, but I belong to the community page, and
Right.
I've seen quite a few with, like, yeah, the bears are out, and a bear got locked in a car, and then the bear
Oh
destroys the
no,
car, and it's like
that
the
makes
bears
such a
know when
mess.
the bears are there looking at their clock or looking at their calendar, saying today's the day they take the trash out. It's time to go shopping. So the
Yeah.
bears know,
Right.
and so I don't know a lot about rattlesnakes in terms of like having them in my yard. I don't.
Hmm.
So I've been a little hesitant to just go out there in my flowers and stuff to just look around. But
Yeah.
I also, it's so funny. So I got one of those light bulbs that you screw in and it has a camera on it. And so it's on my phone.
Oh,
And
neat.
I'm just going to, because there's been a couple of times I take my dog out at night and he chases something off of the deck. And so I'm like, I need
You
to know
don't
what
even
that,
know what it is.
I need to know what it is. I don't want it to be a bear, I
Yeah.
need to fix my
Or
gate.
even
I have one gate
coyotes, or
that's missing.
because you have
Yeah.
coyotes there too,
So
right?
yeah, wolves too in the next county.
Yeah.
Um, so I got a picture of it, and it's a fox came on my deck. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yeah. So you can't really leave anything out, you
No,
know.
not at all.
Yeah, yeah,
Even the grill, I clean my grill really well when I'm
yeah.
done cooking on the grill, because the grill's staying outside. It's on the deck,
Hmm.
right? So,
Yeah.
but I make sure it's clean as a whistle before I close it up.
Yeah.
I don't need a bear in there or anything else.
Well, and the thing is too, so I find joy in nature. Kind of like you were saying, it's nice to live in a place where you have all this
Yeah.
wildlife and stuff like that. And that's where I find my joy. So I'm sitting here right now and I'm looking out my sliding glass door and I've got sweet peas blooming and the
Yeah, mine
oak
are
trees
too.
in the back and it's just like peaceful. I just
Isn't
love
it
it.
nice?
It is
Yeah.
very nice and I think that one of the things about following your joy is if you just take little bites of that and you
Hmm.
don't seek the big payoff, the big
Yeah.
joy payoff, right?
Right.
And you just, because sometimes you'll find that, you're like, I'm doing my everyday and I'm just, cleaning my house, I'm, carrying the water
Right.
and you have to kind of remind yourself sometimes like, this is good too. This is good
Yeah.
too. And yeah, yeah. So
Yeah. Even the things that are mundane, that, like you said, the things that aren't so thrilling,
yeah,
you're fortunate to be able to do them. A lot of
yeah,
people don't have that opportunity.
that's true. And I think that in some situations, and I'm speaking from like experience, right? There are some situations where you could be in like paradise, right? You're in paradise and
Yeah.
there's beauty all around you and all the things you love, but you're so overwhelmed with all of the things that bother you, the
Yeah.
worries and the fears and the feelings of whatever lack or whatever it is, and you don't recognize the paradise around you.
Right.
So I think
You're
that
too
for me,
inside your head instead of in your heart.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
for me, it was just realizing if you can just take the small bits and appreciate those things,
Right.
like a flower,
Yeah. Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
flower, even, um, or like you said, just being able to do like the mundane things and because not everybody has that opportunity.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. I had a conversation with coworkers years and years ago at a factory that I worked at in New Jersey. I was in the office, of course, doing IT work. And they said, "Why are you always smiling?" I said, "Two reasons." They said, "Why?" I said, "Number one, it's better wrinkles. And number two, why not?" I said, "You've
yeah,
got two choices when you wake up in the morning: be miserable or
yeah,
be happy." I'm happy. And this
yeah.
one girl says, "They don't appreciate you." I said, "They who?"
Who's they?
They
Yeah,
who don't appreciate me? And she goes, "The company." I says, "They pay me. They
yeah.
appreciate me the way I need them to appreciate me." I said, "You appreciate it when I help you, right?" She goes, "Of course." I said, "And so does she, and so does Margaret, and so does Steve. They all appreciate what I do for them. Of course." I
Hmm.
said, "So what else do I need?" And she goes, "Oh." And so the another girl came to me and she goes, "I talked to you about praying in the morning." I said, "You're waiting too long. If you're waiting until you get in your car to try and connect with your spirit, you're waiting
Yeah,
too long. You need to do it as soon as your eyes open in the morning."
yeah,
And she came back like a week later. "It's not working." I said, "So when you go to sleep at night, you ask for help, making sure that you connect first thing in the morning." And she came to me 3 days later. "It worked. It worked. I can't believe it worked. I'm so happy." I'm like, "There you go." I said, "It's just a
yeah,
matter of
yeah,
practicing it."
Yeah,
It's like
no,
a muscle.
absolutely. And that's so funny is I was thinking about all the things that you and I talk about and maybe talking about in other, other podcasts and things like that. And I think that there's been a time and it still happens where I think, how are we going to approach that in bite-sized pieces? Because I feel like the experience that you and I have of going through this whole process of learning appreciation and learning joy and knowing that you have to tell yourself, this is what I'm going to do. I'm
Yeah.
going to be happy. I'm going to find something to wake up and look forward to. I'm just going to do it. Even when you feel like you don't have the
Right.
energy for it sometimes,
Yeah.
life happens and sometimes you're exhausted. And the last thing you think about is, I'm going to wake up and smile today or make myself happy or,
Right. But if that's your normal way of being, that's your natural bend. If this is
yeah,
what you've practiced, become part of your daily routine, just like brushing your teeth and taking your shower and
yeah, yeah,
meditating if you meditate, finding that center in yourself is
yeah,
just part of the process of your daily life. But it takes time to get to that point.
exactly. But
And it's
when it happens, I mean, it's like, you're like, how come I didn't know this
20
sooner?
years, depending on your
Yeah,
age. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I'm, couple of, 6 decades or so, I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, how come I didn't learn 40 years ago? It's
Right.
like life would have been different. Um, and then I say, life is what it was supposed to be. And
Yeah.
you learned at the pace you needed to because everything happens in its own timing.
Hmm. Well, we wouldn't have never met if
Yeah,
either one
that's
of us
true.
had taken a different path.
Yeah.
This wouldn't have happened. There's a reason for all of it, Carol. For every crazy
Yeah, yeah,
thing, for every
I agree
simple
with
thing,
that.
the things you don't even recognize are parts of your path. You know,
Yeah,
twisting
yeah.
your ankle. Who would think that that's a thing? But it can be.
Yeah, yeah.
It,
I totally agree. And like I said, it's so funny is that's why I sit here and I'm like, okay, so how are we going to broach some of these conversations? Some of these things are deep
yeah,
and
yeah,
everyone's at a different level. So, we're speaking, talking to each other about this, but we're speaking out there to an audience. And I'm
exactly.
like, yeah, I tell myself, the audience that needs us will hear us,
That's it.
will gravitate towards this.
Yeah.
And that's the timing for it.
That's what it's all about. And they may
Hmm.
not find it this week when we post it. They might find it in 2 months or 3 months, and
Yeah,
it's still going to make an impact.
yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
It's awesome. We're so blessed to be able to do this.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's so funny is that just reminded me, I picked up a book. Oh, my friend gave me this book. It was Carolyn Miss, and I can't remember what the title was, but it was probably 18 years ago. She gave me this book and she said, Carol, I think that you would benefit from reading this book. It really helped me and all these different insights. And I said, okay. So I get the book and I open it and I read like 10 pages of it.
Hmm.
And I said to myself, it's not resonating
Yeah,
with me.
it wasn't
And
time.
and it was about 5 years later, I found it when I was cleaning off my bookshelf. I mean, I have tons of books, right? So I was
Yeah,
like, I've got, dust collects, right? So I'm like, I just have to clean my bookshelf off and maybe get rid of some of the books I'm just sitting around. Maybe I can share them. And I found it again and I opened it up and I read the whole book. And I said the same thing that we were just saying. Why didn't I read this sooner?
right. Yeah,
Right? Why did I wait so long? And
divine timing.
it's
It
timing,
happens when it's
divine
supposed to
timing.
happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's just amazing. I have redefined the word awesome because people use the word awesome for things that are really neat or they think
Yeah.
are cool. And to me, awesome is just so much bigger than
Well,
most
awesome
people
is
use.
awesome, right?
It's
It's yeah.
awe, awe. If
Yeah.
you've ever been
Yeah.
in awe of something,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm fortunate enough to be able to visit that every day because of the
Yeah,
practice of
yeah,
getting to that point.
I
You know,
agree with you.
I've got a gratitude journal that I've been working on getting it ready to publish.
Oh,
And
nice.
I've got a chapter at the beginning of it before you get to the journaling part that talks about finding your joy and going from anxiety to joy. And it only takes a few minutes a day, and you're worth it. And at the beginning of it just kind of talks about what anxiety does to you and what joy does for you and your entire environment. And then there's questions to try and lead people into thinking about how the different emotions feel in their body too. Because a lot of people don't recognize how that, joy feels very close to anxiety.
Because
It's really,
there's that excitement that,
yeah,
oh, yeah.
yeah. And it's so easy to flip to the wrong side, to the more negative side, to the more harmful side, I should say, harmful. And recognizing that is challenging at the beginning. But the more you practice all these finding joy and finding gratitude in your life, the easier it gets. And if you're more
Yeah.
consistent about it, it just becomes the natural part of your personality.
Well, and you just touched on something that's really huge. And I think that that's about people being able to identify their emotions and
Yeah.
where those emotions live in their body.
Hmm.
And really, because we're so society, or I'm not going to say every society because I have no idea. I'm just going to say what the society in which I grew up, the
Yeah.
community. You're so involved in everything outside of yourself, working, living your life and paying your bills and doing all those things that you don't necessarily connect like the feeling. So I think we talked last time, when I started doing meditation, I did the heart mind coherence, and I think that
Yeah.
was Joe Dispenza
Hmm.
and Greg Braden,
Right.
right? And so it's so funny. And
I'll never
so
forget that.
I know, I know. I laughed about it before I came on here. But so when I did that one, I was able to. So the way the meditation goes, they have you think about something that you love,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm like, oh well, my kids, I love my kids,
Yeah.
and I just had a granddaughter, and so I thought about my granddaughter, and then I thought, where do I feel that? Well, of course, I feel it right here in my heart, right? I feel
Yep.
it in my heart, and so a part of the practice was, now think of something that's really upsetting. Think of something that, is really upsetting to you. And now
Right.
where do you feel that? Well, you feel anxiety, I think, in your solar plexus, maybe.
Yeah.
I
Solar
don't,
plexus, and for me, my throat too.
yeah. So I just started practicing that. So if I think this, where do I feel it in my body? So that I could identify without having to stop and say, oh gosh, something's happening and I don't know what it
Right.
is. And I'm feeling this way, not feeling that way, and I don't understand.
Yeah.
So I just practiced. And part of the meditation was, there's an explanation to it, that if you can practice long enough feeling the love part,
Hmm.
that it becomes a muscle memory. So
Right.
that when something outside of you happens that you have no control over and is upsetting, instead of getting in your head about it or not really knowing how to handle it, you just go to the muscle memory.
Yeah.
You just think about, you just picture that your grandkid or whatever it is, and so what happens is you feel it in your heart. And if you're feeling love in your heart, you can't feel anxiety in your solar
No,
plexus.
no, not at all.
Yeah.
It
So
takes over.
it does take over. Yeah, it does. So, and that for me was finding my joy, right? My joy is the
Right.
ones I love.
Yeah.
And that's part of finding your joy or following your joy,
Right.
I think. Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that people don't even think about as being part of their joy. For instance, dancing or music in general,
Yeah.
or like you said, being out in nature. But
Hmm.
there's also the simple things like a clean house. Oh,
Yeah.
man. You know, my dishes are
Yeah.
clean. I can walk in my kitchen, and the only thing that would be dirty in there would be my coffee cup. Right now it's full of coffee, so it's not in there, but it's so nice.
Yeah.
And you can find joy
It
in
is.
the simplest things.
Yeah. Yeah. Fresh laundry, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Having
Yep.
your bed made. I mean, there's so funny is that. Yeah. So I just moved into this place and I'm not moved in all the way. So I'm painting as I go. I mean, I painted this. This is one of the painting projects. And yesterday I painted the entrance, um, kind of a green color. And I felt so good. I felt so good about that. But
Yeah.
everywhere else in my house, I've got boxes. I so like I'm sewing stuff. I have like six totes of sewing stuff because I'm making a baby blanket for my new granddaughter. And
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, but I feel really good that I've got some of the painting done and that brings me joy. It does. So
Yep.
it's like one step. That's the other part of it is being patient. Learning patience is really
Oh,
important. Hmm.
it really is.
Yeah,
It really
yeah,
is.
yeah. So as I
Yeah.
sit here and we're talking, I'm finding joy right now that this wall behind me is painted. I'm like one wall down, you know.
Yeah. Well,
So
I think the more joy you find in your life, the more joy you start practicing, the more the
mhm,
simple things become more joyful too.
exactly,
Because if you're all
exactly.
in your head and you're all worried about bills or feeding some people are even concerned with keeping their homes or feeding themselves or where's their
Yeah,
kid at or so many things to be worried about. If you follow your spirit and you find the joy in the things you can at the time
yes,
and keep revisiting them. Keep just pound away at it. It's like doing bicep curls, you know.
yeah.
Eventually that bicep's gonna grow and be able to
Yeah,
support you.
yeah. I agree with that. That just made me think of another thing. So I've seen or heard about studies where they have a group of people, and some people will sit there and just imagine themselves running, and then they'll have the other group out there actually running. So they're
Uh-huh.
exercising, right? So the one's doing it and the other one's thinking about it the same amount of time.
Hmm.
And both groups get the advantage of the action.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It's so amazing, but that what that tells me is when we think about it's kind of like practicing and creating muscle memory for what you were saying is doing these finding joy in the small things. And so when you do that, you're programming yourself. Oh, I find
Exactly.
joy in that my laundry's done.
Right.
That I got a phone call from my daughter or somebody from out of state, that I went to the grocery store and that I found like the perfect watermelon, or you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah. Yeah, I was at the grocery store a couple weeks ago. Was my birthday, and I went to the grocery store to get a couple things in the evening, and the girl at the counter was so funny. She goes, "You want a chocolate covered blueberry?" I'm like, "No, thank you, no, thank you." And then she offered me something else, and I'm like, "Oh, no, thank you, no, thank you." She goes, "How about this?" And she had a little rose. Somebody had broken off the rose. It was only about this long. The
uh
stem was only like 3 inches, if that. And I said, that I will take for my birthday. Thank you very much.
aw,
And it is still red. It's starting to get a little darker
wow.
on the edges, but
Yeah,
that's over a week and a half ago, 10 days ago.
that's amazing.
Isn't
Yeah.
it?
See,
Yeah.
if you would have chosen the brownie or whatever she was
Yeah.
off, it'd be gone.
Yep.
Yeah. So you can look at that every day and find some joy with that. That's so nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And little things like that just make me happy. It doesn't take much to make me happy.
That's because you've been practicing,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
It's just become part of your life. It's so funny. It really is. When you feel that way, like we
Yeah.
feel, where you find joy in the smallest things. That's
Right.
the part for me when I think about other people and how to share, not just share that is you have the ability, whoever you are, you have the ability to learn this skill so that you too can feel joy,
Yeah.
even with the smallest things.
Mm-hmm.
So when we
Yep.
talk about this, I look back and I say, there was a time when I didn't find joy in and so it's been a step
Yeah.
process. And some people learn quicker than I'm a glutton
Right.
for punishment, I suppose. So it took me longer. Yeah,
Yeah.
So, and I just want to be able to share that with the other people.
Well, there are things going on in your life at times in your life. Your
Hmm.
divorce. I know
Oh
I went
yeah.
through a divorce too, and it was just
Yeah.
divorce and custody battles. It's not fun. It's very stressful. It's very hard to think of things to be happy about. But when I was going through
Yeah.
that, oh gosh, in the 90s, that was a long time ago. Um, oh my goodness.
The
Anyway,
19th century, the 19th century,
yeah, 20th century. And
1900s.
um, I would take when my daughter and I, because we lived in the city, but we lived in a house in the city, so there was like a
Hmm.
cement yard between us and the next house, and we'd go out, and we'd have picnics in that on that cement. We just put a blanket out there, and we'd
Aw.
sit there and have a slice of pizza or something. And
Aw.
the ants would come, and I said, "Oh," so that became our thing. We were having ant picnics, and we would give little pieces of the crust to the ants to see how big of a piece they could take. And
Wow.
it was beautiful.
Yeah, that
Silly
is
things like that
beautiful.
that you could just, replace some of the anxiety. I think a lot of people try and push away anxiety, and that just makes it worse.
It pushes it, hides it for a little while, and
Yeah,
then it just builds.
right.
It's like
Yeah.
pressure building.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Or you're drawing it to you by thinking about pushing it away. To
Hmm.
me, it's like if you're concerned about something, if you're concerned about something that's making you unhappy, you can ruminate over it, ruminate over it, ruminate
Yeah.
over it, make it bigger and bigger and bigger, like a festering sore. Or you can think about it and say, you know what? I'd rather think about this and find something joyful to think about. You have to
Hmm.
replace that hole.
You do.
You can't just
No,
push it away and
you're
ignore it.
right. Yeah.
Nature abhors a vacuum in the garden and in your spirit.
Yeah. No, that's very true. And along with this, following your joy thing is if you consider, and I thought about this a lot, especially in the beginning of my spiritual journey, where I heard, if you stub your toe in the morning and you say to yourself, "Oh, dang, man, that hurts," and so then you're like, "Oh," and then you go in the kitchen and you drop your glass or
Yeah.
something else, and then you're like, "Oh gosh, this is the kind of day I'm going to have." Well, then you've cemented that that's
Yep.
the kind of day you're going to have because your
Right.
energy is producing that, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying that to the universe, and
Yeah.
so
This
the
is what I'm going to
universe,
have today.
this is and the universe says, and I will deliver it to you,
Whatever you want.
whatever
You've
you
placed
want.
your order. You got it.
Yeah. And when I realized that, I thought, oh my gosh, so I'm going to stop saying things like that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
stub your toe, you start laughing. Oh my gosh, I wonder, well, that was
Yeah.
curious,
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
well, when you become the observer of your life, it's easier to do
Yes.
that too.
Yes.
Instead of playing the part as if it's really you. Because
Yeah.
it's your physical you, of course,
Hmm.
but it's
Yeah.
not the whole you. You're so much bigger than that.
Well, and I mean, just what you just said, the observer part of you, that
Hmm.
part of you that hears you talking, that part of you that hears you thinking,
Right.
right? And that
Yeah.
part is looking in a neutral space with just
Exactly.
love. There's no judgment or any of those things. Those things come from how we choose to perceive the world around us
Right. And what we've been programmed to do.
and what we've been
That's all.
programmed to do.
That whole thing.
Hmm. Yeah.
Deprogramming is challenging, but it's this process. You could do it. Everybody can do it.
Yeah, it's recognizing where you're being programmed, and
Yeah.
programming is part of like the community that you grow up in. You're programmed that society,
Yep.
that community, what people
Yep.
do there, or culture, cultural things. You're programmed to look at things differently from a cultural perspective.
True.
Um, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
it
interesting.
it really is. Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking about what you were just saying about your divorce and stuff, and of course you and I have known each other long enough where you've seen me going through the stuff that I went through with my divorce,
Yeah.
and then some physical health issues, and watching that, and recognizing myself, being able to recognize where you can become so much in your head that it's really difficult to appreciate the smaller things, because
That's
it's,
true.
yeah. And I think it's amazing when there are people who have chronic illnesses and they can still laugh and smile and enjoy their lives. And
Mm-hmm.
my sister was like that all the way up until she passed, and she was pretty inspiring for me
Yeah,
to look at the world differently,
I'll bet.
because yeah. So
Well, it's
I know people can do it. That's all I'm saying.
yeah, absolutely. And I think part of that too is in her case is probably because what's the point in getting upset about it? Do you want to
Yeah,
live your life miserable or do you not want to live your life miserable? You've got that choice every morning or every moment of the
yeah,
day. You can choose which way you want to be.
yeah.
You don't have to just follow what your instant impulse is.
That's right. Because you can change your mind at any time.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful thing. It's funny because, sometimes I've caught myself too. I'll be like, okay, I've got this to do. This is my schedule for the day. I don't really want to go to town. I don't really feel like going shopping. I just have to go do that.
Yeah.
And so then you go shopping, and in your mind you're like, I just don't really want to be here. I just don't. So then it seems like it takes longer,
Right.
right? So then in that I say to myself, look, because I do a lot of self-talk. I do.
Yeah.
I'm
Me
like,
too.
Carol. Yeah, I'm like, Carol, this is a good day.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a good day. You're here shopping, so you're out of the house, you're around other people,
Hmm.
and you have to take that attitude and chuck it, right?
Yeah.
So like, sometimes I don't have to tell myself that often, but
Right.
occasionally I do, especially if
Sure.
I have a big list of things to do. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
It's funny. I had one day, I do these things where I put these little orders into the universe just for fun, just to play.
yeah.
And one day, I think I wrote a blog post about it on my Facebook or something. Anyway, I had woken up in the morning and I says, three things. I want to see a hawk. I hadn't seen a hawk in a while. And I want to meet somebody interesting while I'm out and about today. And I want to see a contrail.
Oh.
Before I was at the stores within 20 minutes, all three had happened.
That's amazing.
It was. And I saw the
Yeah,
hawk and I'm like, oh, cool. Thank you, universe. And
yeah.
then I was going into a grocery store, I think, and I saw one contrail and I says, I got a test for you. Can you put another one that crosses it? When I came back out of that store 10 minutes later, there was the other one crossing it. So there's an X in the sky. And then I'm getting ready to put my car into reverse to back out of the parking space. And there's an empty space next to me here on the driver's side. And I'm checking around me. I don't see anybody. And as soon as I took my foot off the brake and started backing up, I hear a screech like a dog. And I'm like, oh no, because I don't have cameras or anything. I'm like, oh no. And there's this lady standing next to my car just laughing and laughing. I've always wanted to do that to somebody. And I says, that was you? She says, yeah. She says, you should have seen your face. And I'm just laughing and laughing. And I says, I'm so glad you did that. Thank you so much for adding some joy to my day. And she was just laughing. She goes, well, thank you for not getting angry. I said, how could I get angry? I asked for it. Thank you for delivering.
Yeah,
Because that was just crazy. It was
yeah.
crazy. But bing, bam, boom, all three things is right off the bat. And
Well,
all of
yeah,
every
and
time you do that, it's joyful, you know?
it is joyful. And I think part of that too is having it happen often enough that
Hmm.
you know that the universe is listening to you.
Right.
So it's being able to open up to the idea that the universe is listening,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I do that in small waves, right? So I have birds out here. I have so many beautiful birds out here. And I've always had hummingbird feeders, but because I just relocated, I didn't have any. So I when I was at the thrift store, because I love thrift stores, I found a little hummingbird feeder for like 25 cents. I was
Oh,
like,
nice.
woohoo, right? That was one
Yeah.
of those joys. You know, I was like, I felt joyful when I found that. I was like, woohoo, right? And so I put it out there and I was watching it and I didn't see hummingbirds. And so the next day I said, I'm going to see a hummingbird when I go up to that window this morning
Hmm.
and get water for my coffee. I'm going to see a hummingbird. And I saw a hummingbird. And then
There
it
you
came
go.
to my sliding glass window and just kind of looked in. I was like, woohoo. Right? Yeah,
I
I
love it
know.
when they do
I
that.
want to see a crow. I want a crow to get closer to me. It landed on my decking, my
Yeah.
banister railing, whatever that is. And it was huge. It was so big that I thought, is this a raven or a crow? I had no idea.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So crows get apparently up to, I think, 24 inches,
28, I think. Yeah,
maybe 30. I mean, they get pretty big. It was big.
they can.
And ravens can get huge. I was
Yeah.
surprised.
You have
I've
to
seen
look
them
up the
flying
beak.
around.
There's a difference in their beak shape.
Yeah, one's
One's
thicker.
more, yeah,
Yeah, and
and
then,
more
yeah,
curved.
yeah,
And I think that's the raven that's got the more curved, thick beak.
yeah.
But it's hard to tell if you don't have them side by side anyway.
Well, that's true. Plus, when you see it, you're like, oh my gosh, it did show up. And there it
Yeah,
is. And you
right.
go there, and it's like the crow looks at you like, I'm out of here, lady. So then it flies away. So,
Crows are so cool. I love
yeah,
watching them play. And when we first moved into this house, I would throw food out the backyard for them all the time. And there must have been some that lived close by or paid attention to my house. Because if
yeah,
I would open the sliding glass door, they were, boom, they're in the yard waiting for me to put the stuff out, whether it was berries that had gone a little too long or bread or, pizza crust or whatever. And I just threw it right there so I could watch them eat it. And they would
yeah.
take it to the bird bath and get it wet if it was like hard, crusty bread. It was so cool. I
That
loved
is
it.
cool. Yeah, I love nature watching. Really, I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. Me too.
It's the small things. Find
Yeah.
joy in those things.
And
Hmm.
practice it.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
it really makes a big difference.
It really does. It's so funny or interesting. Um, some days I just, I get up and I say, okay, you're going to paint today, or you're going to clean today, you're going to do whatever it is.
Right.
And I don't walk out there and just look at the nature around me, right?
Yeah.
And when it's been like 2 days and I go out there, I go, oh wait, it's almost like it's saying, hey, look at us, look at us,
Yeah.
and then I look and I'm like, oh my gosh, there you
Yeah.
are, and you're in the majesty of oak trees is just amazing to me.
They are amazing. Yeah.
They are absolutely amazing. They have like huge personalities. If you could imagine a tree having a personality, that's all
Right.
I'm saying.
I can. But I talk to things, all sorts of things.
Yeah, so
So,
do I. So do I. So funny, right? That's so funny. But yeah, especially because when it becomes like something that you just do, you go outside, you talk to your flowers, you tell them how pretty they are, and
mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
in your trees, and yeah, tell them how glorious they are, and yeah,
Right.
I do that. I do that too.
I told you earlier, I think my little brother was here helping me clean out some of the mint out of my garden because my herb
Yeah.
garden has been taken over by the mint. And he's like, should I just spray it? I said, there's no poison in my yard at all. If you're going to spray it with, you're going to have to spray it with vinegar. and that really
Mhm.
doesn't do anything but kill the leaves that are out right now. So there's not much point. So so it's a manual labor thing. And he
Yeah.
goes, "What about this here?" I said, "Leave that. That is beautiful, beautiful mint. It tastes so good. I've got peppermint and spearmint growing." And of course they went crazy. They also jumped over into the driveway around the
Oh,
bushes. And I'm like, those look really, really healthy. The ones that have not been growing for a few years in the same spot are
yeah.
big and beautiful, and they just look succulent and fabulous, and they smell
Mm,
beautiful.
smells so good.
Every time it
Spearmint. Oh my
rains, a
gosh.
little wind,
Yeah.
you smell it.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah. I have lemon balm growing out there, and that's pretty nice. When I first saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, I think that's lemon balm. And then I touched it. I'm like, oh gosh, I just love that.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
lavender, I have a patch of lavender out here and rosemary and stuff. So I'm excited about this place and
Yeah,
planting things. And then I'm like, oh, but you have to watch what you plant, right? So if I plant fruit trees, I'll have bears and you know what I mean? So it's one of
right.
those. Yeah, I've lived in a forested kind of area before, and I've had gardens before,
Hmm.
but being right in the very backyard where the bears live. So I'm living in their neighborhood.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's being respectful of that. It's a learning process.
Hmm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen with I've got a peach tree that's finally got peaches, little tiny
Ooh,
baby peaches on it this year. And we had a windstorm. So there was couple hundred of them on the ground. But look up in the tree and there's still several hundred up there. So I suppose, I
yeah,
don't know how much is going to be left over when the wind and the bears and the weather are done with it. We'll see if we get a few of them. I'm
yeah,
excited.
yeah.
It was
It's,
a,
it's
it was a
yeah.
Walmart end of the season sale like 5 years ago. I
Oh
got it
my
for
gosh,
$12.
that's amazing.
It was like a stick with like two little tiny branches, no leaves on it or anything. I says, I'm buying it. We'll see. For
Yeah,
$12, it'll bless us.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll
That's
see if the
wonderful.
bears
I
will
love
show
when
up.
that happens. I love when
Yeah,
that happens.
me too.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Finding that joy.
Finding the joy. See, just talking about these things, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just love this stuff. I just
Me
love
too.
thinking about um, like the little things that have made a difference.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
hmm
Hmm.
The funny thing about too finding your joy is if you tell yourself, I'm going to find something today that gives me joy, no matter what it is.
Right?
I'm going to look at it and I'm going to derive from whatever it is a sense of
Yeah.
joy. And you just talk yourself through that process.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah. Slow down a little bit and
mhm,
appreciate what's around you, and you're going to find that joy.
mhm.
Whether it's a kid bouncing the ball in the street in front of your car and not getting hit by your car, or, you know, hey, things that could be stressful can also be joyful
Well,
on
that's
the other side.
true. That's true. I also have pine trees, and so there are pine cones, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
there are so many pine cones, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so what am I going to do with all these pine cones? Well, I have lots of
Mulch.
trees. Well, mulch, but also I saw this video this morning, and I thought, well, what a clever idea. So you put the pine cones around the base of trees, and it keeps pests out. Things will, stay away from your trees if you have the pine cones. Now I have to do a little
Really?
bit more research on that. Yeah, well that's what this video was claiming. Now I haven't tried it,
Hmm.
so I can't say, yes, that's absolutely true. But I thought, well, that's interesting. And they kind of they put something around it so it looked like a little um, like a base around it
Uh-huh.
that went out from the tree probably 2 feet. So it was pretty to look at too.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, look
So we'll
that up.
see.
Sounds interesting.
I will look that up because listen, I have so many pine cones.
Yeah, I
But
can
and I
imagine.
did it. I'm out there with a blower, whoa, blowing them out off of the my driveway and down the road, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, and trying to pull them out of my bushes where the poison oak is. And I'm like, yeah,
Oh
it's
yeah.
just it's the funny thing is I told you we were talking the other day when we were texting, and that I was out there, and this was now 2 weeks ago, and I had only been around a small amount of poison oak. I was pulling out some sweet peas
Hmm.
from this rock garden, and I saw, oh, there's poison oak in here. And so I came in the house and I washed it all off. And then 2 days later, I had just a little patch on my arm, right? And then the next thing you know, it was on both of my arms.
Oh
Yeah. So, yeah.
yeah. It
So
does
I was like,
spread.
okay, all right, we're okay. So, and it goes through a cycle too while you're washing it off. I mean, I have soap that, to take away whatever that oil is that spreads.
I can never remember how to say it. You're so you're a soy. I don't know.
Yes,
I starts
yes,
with a U.
that, right? So, yeah, so it's so funny is I'm like, okay, Carol. So when you go out to play in the garden and pull weeds and stuff, maybe wear long sleeve shirts,
Hmm.
maybe
Yeah,
wear gloves. I mean, that makes
definitely.
a lot of sense. And sometimes I'll just be out there, and this is how it happens, because I go, oh gosh, it's so pretty out here, and I just want to, I'm finding my joy, and I'm like, oh my gosh, oh look, I'm just gonna go pull that out of there, and then the next thing you know, I'm like in it,
Oh yeah.
like
Yeah.
in it,
I do the same thing.
yeah, yeah.
Now I wonder, and I'm not interested in testing this because I don't even want to test messing with the poison ivy. But I wonder if there was a lotion, I don't know if Avon still makes it from Avon called
Oh,
silicone glove. And it
oh,
was actually a silicone based lotion. So you were like sealing your skin. And I gave it to people when I worked at the chemical factory because the people in the lab were washing their hands all the time and they were just raw.
yeah,
And they
yeah.
found that it protected their skin from all the soap and the chemicals that they were dealing with. So I wonder if it would also help kind of it's a barrier cream. Put a barrier cream on before you go out there.
Well, I think that would be something I would be willing to try because I have a lot of poison oak. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
You try it. You let me know.
I will. I
And
will try that.
you can get the barrier cream either there was one called, I can picture the bottle, but I can't remember the name, but it's called barrier cream and it's a silicone based cream too,
Mhm.
or the Avon one.
Yeah,
I'll
I
bet it
will definitely.
helps.
Yeah, yeah, that would be fantastic. That would be fantastic. And I'm like picturing I'm so visual. I'm picturing myself coating it all over my arms, all my face, and my neck.
Well, why not? And it keeps
Yeah,
the moisture in too, so you're not going to evaporate out, so much moisture from your skin. I don't think it's got any UV protection in it, but
that's all right.
if it
That's okay.
protects you from the oils from the poison oak and ivy, it's worth it. Worth the try.
Yeah, it is worth trying. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
give it a
give that
shot.
a shot, and then I'll let you know.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Uh,
That's funny.
see, and that's something else you can find joy in if that works.
Yes, yes,
And your
I
pine cone
agree.
idea. You let
Hmm.
me know about that.
I will
Got
let you
plenty of
know
them out
about
here.
that. Yeah. But you had mentioned mulch. Now that's a
Yeah,
really good idea too,
that would
using it
work.
for mulch. Hmm.
Yeah, I'd be concerned with putting it around the trees because it's wood and it's
Oh
not live
yeah.
wood, so it could attract more bugs. It would probably keep critters out of your trees because they're pointy.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what that message was with the video that I saw is it keeps critters out of your trees.
Hmm.
But then I'm like, I mean, after I said it, after we're talking, I'm like, I don't care if there are critters in my trees.
Right. Well, if you had a pear tree or a peach tree or something
Yeah,
like that, and you didn't want the raccoons climbing up to get the fruit,
yeah,
that would probably help for that.
yeah.
We went all the way over to gardening, but it's all joyful
Yeah.
stuff. That's our conversations, folks.
That's yeah. We're all gardening fruit trees. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
I
Oh
did
gosh.
buy. I found some joy. I've gardened before. It's been a while since I've gardened for fruits and vegetables and things like that. And I went to the shopping center the other day, and they had little squash plants. And I said to myself, "Hey, self, I
Mhm.
think I'm going to get one of those." And I bring it home. And after like 3 days, it's grown so big in like three
Oh,
days. And I talk to it. I talk to my plants just like you go out there and talk to the trees and the flowers. I talk to my plants, and it's getting so big.
that's
And that brings
fabulous.
me joy. I'm like that.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I'm excited to see what happens with that.
I'm sure.
Yeah. I have a window, one of those window boxes. I might just put it in there so that it survives raccoons and bears and foxes. Although
Oh,
I don't know if fox eat, you know,
I don't
vegetables.
I don't know.
Isn't that funny? Like I don't know either. I don't know either.
No idea. But they'll eat some, they'll leave you some. Just make a deal with them.
Yeah.
You can have some, but the rest is mine. It's amazing they
Yeah,
listen.
they do listen. They do listen. I'm still waiting on the poison oak to um, agree with me that they
Yeah,
can stay as long as it's along the
over
border of
there.
the property, just
Yeah.
the border, and then just leave a small path in case I want to go past the border. Because
Yeah,
it's all behind me. It's all mountains and rocks and trees and forest and creeks and
right.
rivers and stuff. So,
Cool
you
stuff.
know, cool stuff, very cool stuff. A lot of things to be grateful for, a lot of things to find that I find joy in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Same here.
Hmm.
We should do an intro and an outro.
We should do an intro and an outro. We should. I'll do the intro, you do the outro.
Okay.
Okay? All right. That's so funny.
She's gonna
I
get
know,
the
right?
giggles again.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Um, what did we say before?
Welcome to Growing
Welcome.
Wisdom.
Welcome. Okay. All right. Welcome to Growing Wisdom with me, Carol Harris, and
Me, Marge Bigby. Hi.
today we're talking about things that following your joy, things that bring you joy, and that's a big part of this conversation today. Welcome.
Good. And the outro. And
Okay.
I'll clip it all together. It's fun. It's
Uh-huh.
fun. I gotta get a drink of coffee though. My throat's really dry.
Mine's been dry. I have my little raspberries in my water. It just is so like refreshing.
I haven't had any cucumber water yet this year. I've got to get some cucumber.
Oh, that sounds good.
Oh, it's so refreshing.
Yeah.
And it's almost blackberries out here. I've got wild blackberries. Some
Ooh.
bird planted them. Thank you, bird. But the
Hmm.
thorns on those babies are rough.
Yeah.
But there are thousands of berries on them.
Ah, yeah. I would much rather have. Well, I was going to say I would much rather have the poison oak than the berry bushes, but I think in different like regions. So when I was in Oregon, we had I don't probably thousands. I'm not, and that's not an exaggeration. In the area where we lived, there were thousands of blackberry bushes, and
Mm-hmm.
we had to mow. We had to mow, and we used those as fencing. You
Yeah.
just mow. They grow so tall, and they've got those stickers on there.
Yeah.
But I would go out there and I would spend hours just picking berries. And by the time you're done, you're
Scratched
bleeding.
up like
You're bleeding.
crazy.
Yeah, you're bleeding. And not profusely, something like
Right.
that. but jam,
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah,
Yeah.
pies, yeah,
Smoothies.
smoothies, ice cream. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Oh
And
yeah.
I've got raspberry. See, the blackberries got planted on the wrong side of the garden, but that's okay. Whatever. There where my lettuce goes. It's okay. You can be there. I'm not moving.
Yeah.
And the other side of my garden is two different kinds of raspberries that Amanda bought me for my birthday several years ago.
Oh,
So I've got the pink ones and the white ones, and they're thornless. So that's nice.
ooh,
Yeah.
that's very nice.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
Unfortunately, where I planted them is an old maple tree, and maple trees like to lose their limbs.
Yeah.
So it's gotten a few big
Whack.
whack. Not as many of them this year as there was last year. They'll
Yeah.
come back.
I I have a lot of manzanita. Uh, do you know what manzanita looks like?
Mm-mm.
So the branches, the stalk or the main stalk, it's red. It's like a deep red, almost like a burgundy color, and it's smooth. So when it grows up, you see the green, and the leaves are all green. So you've got this pretty green, and the leaves are basically round like this. I don't
Okay.
like I can't. I don't know. They're round like this. They're like silver dollars almost.
Okay.
Okay, and but the stalks and the branches are just this brilliant, beautiful burgundy color,
Oh, wow.
and I have them. They're everywhere, right? And so I keep telling myself there's got to be a way that I could use some of that, for artistically
Right.
for some purpose because they get overgrown. You have to trim them. So I have branches. I even have some plants that have fallen and stuff
Mm-hmm.
because they're also very very hardwood, very hard.
Interesting. You could
Hmm.
probably make living fence out of them.
Oh yeah, I bet you're right.
I was watching videos yesterday, and they were talking about the living fences in Europe that are they're older. The towns are gone that they were protecting, but
Wow.
they're still there because they would bend the branches, the trunks sideways, and then weave in. Um, they would plant some things straight, and everything else would weave in between them, and they would just keep weaving them and
Wow.
trimming them, and they were just fabulous.
Yeah,
That would be really pretty with that too.
that would be pretty gorgeous. Huh.
A lot of work though, but
A lot of work. Well, and I have a
labor of
lot
love.
that they grow, so they're everywhere. So
Are they an
I don't
invasive plant? Are they natural there? Or do you know?
um I think that they're natural here. I don't think they're invasive. In fact, they might even be protected. I'm
Oh,
not sure about that though. But I have this area that needs to be cleared around my house. So I have to take some of those out along with some other little bushes and things like
uh-huh.
that. So I'm like, can I make something with those? Could I wands or
That'd be cool.
yeah, that would be kind of cool. Wands
Do
are
they stay
fun.
red after they're cut? Or do
They
they go brown?
do.
They
They
do.
stay red. Hmm.
I wonder if they use that red to make dye or
That's a
paints or pigments.
that's a good question. Well, next time before we do our video, I'll show you some of them.
Cool. Sounds
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
Sounds real good.
yeah. I've been pretty artsy fartsy lately, so I've looked for
Yeah,
things. You have your list of to do, and then you
right.
have that list where you're like, oh,
I
I'm
need a
not gonna I'm not
distraction.
gonna to do that right now. Good
Yep,
idea. I need something fun to do right now. So, or
right.
not fun, because I really enjoy painting, and that's the truth. I enjoy the painting, and the funny thing is I've painted before, and this is the first time I've ever painted, and I did not use any tape to mask. And then my ceiling is one color, and my walls are another color.
Uh-huh.
And I did a really good job. So I've gotten
Awesome.
to that point where I'm like, I'm painting, where your two colors meet that are different
Yeah,
um, in those areas, and I'm painting that, and I've only made a couple of mistakes, and that's that feels good.
it does.
Yeah,
I hate taping. I
yeah,
taped somewhere. One of our places, I taped things up and I'm like, this takes too darn long. My dad taught me how to edge it. I'm just gonna edge it.
yeah,
It just by the time I've taped it up
yeah.
and down the ladder and up and down, because it's always the ceiling part. And I don't do
Hmm.
well looking over my head anyway, because I've got progressive glasses on. So, I have to look like put my head way back to see the close stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Well, it's so funny talking about taping and stuff. So I've taped, painted, didn't have the chance to pull the tape off right away,
oh
went
no,
back, then the tape, of course, sticks to the
ripping the
paint.
paint.
You rips the paint off, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Oh,
Or you take the tape off and it stays because there's some paint on it, and then you've got to get your little tool and you've got to.
yeah,
I'm like, I'm not taping, man. I'm not
right.
taping. I'm just going to see what I can do.
I have one of those straight edge things, but they don't work for me.
Yeah.
But well, number one, in this house, we have plaster walls, we don't have drywall.
Hmm.
So it's not flat. So you're gonna still not get a good
Yeah.
adhesion, with a straight edge because the wall's not straight. It's just not gonna work.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I still
Anyway,
have them. Yeah, I still have painting to do. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm traveling this weekend. So our next video will be from the Sonora house.
okay, cool,
Yeah,
cool,
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
And I'm gonna post the other half of our last recording tonight on the Neuvias site.
Okay,
It should have been done by now, but I will do it tonight. It's all ready to go. I just have to do the posting part.
okay. I don't think I've seen the first part. I just saw the before. I only saw before the intro and outro stuff. So you'll have to send that to me again. That link. Did you email it to me? Because
I don't know.
I know that you sent it to me, but the thing is because I've been doing all of this other branch. I've got like 100 tabs up, so I'm getting lost in the weeds here with it.
I hear
So
you. Let me
if
send
you
it to you. Hold on just a second.
if you could send it to branches of consciousness.
I think the problem is because it's a Google email
Uh-huh.
address, it's a Google Drive. Excuse me.
Uh-huh.
You probably have to access it from a Google account, your Google account.
Yeah. So I have branches of consciousness at gmail.com.
Okay, let me hit it.
And if we just use that for what we're doing, because the awakened comedy stuff is kind of on the sidelines nowadays.
Okay, sent.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm gonna make you an editor. Editor. I said editor. There we go. There you go.
Awesome.
Beautiful. Oh,
Awesome.
let me do the outro. One more drink.
Yes.
We don't want to forget that.
No, that would be hilarious.
How do I start it? Thanks for joining us here on Growing Wisdom. And Carol and I look forward to having the next episode for you. We don't know yet we don't know yet what the subject's going to be, but we'll let you know. Please make sure to subscribe and like and comment if you have any questions or anything to say to us. And check my team out at www.neuvias.com.
And you can email me at branchesofconsciousness at gmail.com. And I have a website coming soon. Thank
Yay.
you. Thank you. Yay. I know.
Thanks. Love
Thanks.
you all.
All right. Bye. Bye for now.
Bye. That'll do. I'll cut that
That'll
little
do.
stutter out. I'm getting pretty good at editing these things.
Well, that's good. You know, the thing is too, and I need to practice with some of my own things. And I just feel like because I'm so busy trying to get my stuff organized that I
Yeah,
just haven't spent as much time because it's either if I'm focusing on what we're doing and me going in there and doing my branches of consciousness stuff, um, then I'm not painting and I'm not
right.
unpacking boxes and I'm not out there pulling weeds and you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
as soon as the house stuff, especially inside the house stuff is done, then I can focus more on the other stuff.
yeah,
So I know it's just a matter of time. It's me practicing patience and finding joy in the little things. And I really enjoy us being able to have these conversations
me
and do
too.
this thing. I really do. I appreciate
That's
it.
cool. It's
It's
really
great.
cool.
I think so too. I do. I love it. And I feel like the less prepared I am, the
This,
easier and more natural
yeah.
flow.
Yeah, it's just because it's a general conversation. It's a conversation we would have had whether we were recording or not.
Yeah. I think that's the way to do it, don't you?
Yes.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I
That's
agree
how
with that.
Carol Velasquez and I do the other Nuvias. We do our recordings are on Thursday, and I usually post them on Friday. So but because we already had we don't have as much editing. We actually we begin at the beginning. We chat a little bit and then we say, okay, let's get started. And she'll do the intro and then we'll have the conversation. She'll do the outro. We all say goodbye. And I hit stop recording and I put the intro and outro on the end and we're done. I post it.
Nice.
Boom. No editing. I don't edit it.
Yeah,
We just throw it out there. This one will just have two edit places. Not bad.
not bad. That's good.
Yeah.
Maybe. Well, you and I will eventually get to that point, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just timing. We'll get there. I'm loving it.
I'm loving it too. And honestly, this time felt I was I'm so funny. I just look at my, I don't know if I've had this conversation before, and if we did, it would have been years ago. But so when Sandra and I first started Awaken Comedy, that was kind of we wanted to do that because the awakening process is so stressful, and all the videos we were watching, people are talking about their dark night of the souls and all these things, and everyone's like, "Oh, this happened to me," and I'm trying to, and then they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I have this Kundalini awakening," and I'm like, "Not
Yeah.
everybody has one of those, right?"
No.
So it was kind of like us finding this point where we could kind of make fun of it,
Right.
but not being like not believing in some of that stuff. It's not like that. It being open to all of it,
Sure. But not
but
everybody goes through it in the same way or
that's
takes it
right.
the same way.
Or
You
takes it
know,
the same
I'm
way.
sure that you and I have both had dark nights of the soul.
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
But those
absolutely.
were the, at the time, I'm sure they were very upsetting. I'm not living there anymore, so I
Yeah.
don't know. That's why my book is so freaking boring. I can't even bring myself. I mean, I wrote the whole book, the whole
uh,
long book about, traumatic blessings. But I'm like, this isn't interesting. So what? He killed himself. Yeah. I mean, sorry, Monty, but
yeah.
but it was
And
all
so
part of the
it's
process to get me where I am, you know?
well, and while you were going through it, it was awful,
Yeah.
right? And
But each
that's
time it was less awful because of
yes.
Monty. And that's
Uh,
what I write in the book because Monty stayed after he died. 3 days later, he was in the back seat of my car. It was so cool. The Welcome Back Cotter song. However, how many times did you ever hear the Welcome Back Cotter song on the radio? I've heard
it's
it
been
one
a
time.
long time. Yeah.
I only heard it on the
Yeah,
radio
it's been
one
a
time.
long time.
I never heard it on the radio. The station I listened to didn't play stuff like that. I was
Yeah.
listen to country music. Why was that on there? And he's sitting in the back seat of my car when this song comes on. I feel him.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, oh my God, you're here. We haven't had the funeral yet. He goes, nope, not yet. And
Isn't
I
that
didn't even,
amazing?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize that I knew these things then. I mean, I
Yeah.
kind of did because of things that had happened before, but I didn't realize
Hmm.
how connected, how easy it was for me because I never questioned it.
Yeah.
He did one of those, such a smart aleck. So he did one of those in Ghost when the ghost jumps into Whoopi Goldberg
Yeah.
and takes over. He did
Yeah.
that to me, but I didn't know he did that to me at the time. And so I'm sitting there. This is maybe a month later, and I'm sitting at the diner with my girlfriend, and we're drinking our coffee and having my coconut cream pie, which I always had there every time we went. That's what I had: coconut cream pie and coffee. And we're sitting there talking, and she goes like this, "What did you say?" And I says, "Nothing." She goes, "Yes, yes, you did. Your eyes changed, your voice changed, and you said, had I known what this was going to do to everybody, I never would have shot myself."
Oh.
And I says, "Oh, I heard that." She goes, "No, you said that." I said, "I said that?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "No, I didn't say that. Monty said that."
Yeah.
You know,
That's pretty amazing. That's
it was
pretty
very
amazing.
cool. Very cool.
Yeah. I've had when my I was really close with my mother-in-law, and when she passed, I got her car. But she and I were really close because my ex-husband had had a brain injury, so she and I spent a lot of time together. So when she passed, I was driving her car, and she was right next to me. And I
Hmm.
remember driving, and I looked over,
I
and
saw her.
it's like I could see her. I could see her without actually seeing her.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I could feel her, and I could smell her perfume. And I said,
Yeah.
"Oh, you're here." And that happened with my father too. So my father passed, and I was in his car again, and I turned the radio on, and my dad was really big on oldies, and
Hmm.
the oldies came on the station, and I look over, and he was there. He was,
Yeah.
and he stayed with me for a while in the car, and then he was gone.
They just hang out.
Just hang out.
We'll have to have
I've
a
had
conversation
some,
about all the different experiences we've had with
yeah,
stuff like that because it's really fun.
yeah. It
And,
is really fun. It is
and
really
so
fun.
many people have them and they dismiss them.
Well, because they don't, it's almost like when I said I could see her but not see her.
Yeah.
I knew her presence was there, but it was more than that. It was like there was a space I could,
Yeah.
it's really hard to,
It's almost like you can feel them, or touch
yeah,
them. But
yeah,
if you were to reach out, you would feel nothing
yeah.
physically.
I mean, if
Mm,
you closed your eyes and sat there, it would be like
they'd be sitting there. Yeah.
they'd be sitting there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's one of
We,
the energy conversations that we should have.
yeah, we
Another one.
should. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. We gotta have
Well,
Carol
and
V in. We could have Carol V in with us on that one.
that'd be great.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I remember seeing my mom. I know I told you the story about my mom in the books. My mom, I was sitting here working on my computer, and suddenly I saw my mom sitting on the floor right there, going through magazines. She loved going through her catalogs of magazines and stuff. And she was sitting on the floor looking through magazines or sorting them out. And I'm like, "Hi, mom." And she looked up and she disappeared. And that was it. And I'm like, okay. But I was taking care of their house at the time because my
Hmm.
sister had gone back to Illinois. So I was watering the plants. And I went into their guest bedroom and I'm like, why is the closet door open? The magazine rack had fallen. The shelf had fallen and the magazines were all over the floor. That's why she was picking them up.
Oh, that's so
I
funny.
said,
Oh
got it,
my
mom. I'll
gosh.
stick them back in here and tell Andy to fix the shelf.
Oh my gosh. Oh
That
my
was pretty
gosh.
cool. And
That's
I'd been
very
in there three
cool.
days before and there was nobody else in the house. So,
Well, and it's so funny, yeah, that things like that happen. When I was going through my divorce, I'd stayed with my sister for about 3 months, and she and I stayed in the same room because we had been going through all of this spiritual stuff that we've both been experiencing.
Yeah.
And we had lost not just our mother, but we had lost our sister and our brother and our mother within this really short period of time.
Yeah.
And she said to me, Mom comes to me all the time. And I said, she does? And she said, yeah. And I said, she doesn't really come to me. And she said, oh, she says, yeah, she comes to me. So we were in the room and we're talking about all this stuff. And she said something to me like, let's ask Mom to let us know that she is here. And I said, okay. And she had, from her son's birthday, she had one of those helium balloon things,
Uh-huh.
right? And it was in one side of the room. Now there's no air conditioning on, no heaters are on, and it was in this one side. So we talked to our mother and we said, could you move that balloon to, and we gave specific places.
Mm-hmm.
And for probably 20 minutes to a half an hour, our mother moved that balloon from one side of the room to the other, next to our bed, to the end of the bed, and back again.
Isn't that cool?
It's very cool. That was very cool. So she
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I'm here, I'm here.
Yep.
So yeah, that was very cool.
That's so neat.
Hmm.
It reminds me, one day, again at my mom's house, my sister was away, and I told her, I says, I took some candles from the bedroom. And she's like, okay. I said, Mom didn't say I couldn't have them. I asked. I yelled it in the house. Mom, can I have these? I said, if she'd have said no, I would have absolutely not taken them. But she did
Yeah.
not say no. So probably would have ran, but she would have never said no to me, not for something silly like that. It was kind of
Yeah,
cool though.
that is very cool. It's so funny how we get messages though, and not just because I've had them where when my brother had passed, I was at the gym, and this was probably a few months after he passed. It was before my mother passed, I think. And I was at the gym, and I'm, just doing the gym thing. I was on not the treadmill, but it was the walker
The
thing. So you're like,
elliptical
oh,
thing.
I was like, oh
Yeah.
gosh, right. And then his face was just right in front of me, and I could see
Oh,
his
wow.
face, and it was just his face.
Yeah.
And right.
Are you
And
paying
then,
attention to me?
are you paying attention? And he gave me a message. And I was like, oh. And it was serious. I could tell that it was serious because, he showed up a couple of times after that, but it was always at the gym, which I thought was hilarious.
That's funny. Did he go
It's
to the
very,
gym?
no, he
Or
did not go to the gym.
maybe it was a place that you just were not focused on anything else
I think you're
and he could get
probably
in.
right. Yeah,
Kind of like the shower is one of those things, when you're in the shower, you're not really thinking about, and you're just showering, you're not thinking about things that are bothering you or planning your day.
yeah,
They'll jump in to the shower with
yeah,
messages frequently.
yeah. So that's pretty amazing. Um, well, my dad came to me before he died, like an hour before, and asked me if it was okay if he went.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And my aunt came to me. My aunt had been in a coma for like 3 months. And she actually came to me in a dream. And we were playing. I was there in the dream and I see her. And I knew in my mind, oh my gosh, you're in a coma right now. And she said, hey. And I said, hey. She says, are we playing red light, green light? And I said, yeah. And she goes, well, am I calling it or are you calling it? And I said, well, this is your game. So you get to call it. And she said, oh, is that all right? And I said, of course it's okay if you call it. It's your game, right?
Yep.
And so that was, and then she passed away. It was probably a week later. But
That's
it's
very
like,
cool.
yeah, like before, it's so funny. Like we had a friend, and we were looking at his Facebook page, and on there, his wife had said, he had passed away. He had lung cancer or something like that. And we hadn't. His name was Tom, and we hadn't heard from him in a year. It had been a year, and so my ex-husband and I were like, oh, that's so sad. That Tom, is gone and his family's, mourning and stuff. And anyway, we were actually invited to his funeral. And but before that, as soon as I said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that," from right here I could see Tom, and I look, and it's Tom's face, and I go, "Tom?" And he said, "You can see me?" Right?
That's cool.
That was funny. I mean, it was funny, but
Yeah, that's
just
neat.
yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. So yeah, that was pretty neat.
I love these stories. We could just talk about these for days.
We could, we could. I mean, there are other things. So we raised cattle, and we had this calf. It was a heifer calf, and she was probably 4 months old, and she was like the biggest one we had. I mean, she was absolutely just beautiful, and she had gotten sick, an upper respiratory infection. And cows typically, uh, calves won't survive that if you don't catch it right away,
Uh,
right?
uh-huh.
So I mean, they can have it for 3 days, and if you haven't caught it in that 3 days, then typically you will lose them. And so she was out there laying down, and I was so sad for her. And my youngest daughter and I went out there, and I said to her, I said, my gosh, she's been out here laying down here. It was beautiful weather. It was springtime, so she had been laying there, and I said to my daughter, I said, let's put our hands on her and just tell her that it's okay if she goes.
Yeah.
And so we just sat there with her, told her it was okay if she went, and she passed 15 minutes later.
Wow.
I was like, oh my gosh, because I felt so heartbroken for her that she was suffering.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But it's just those things that tell you that somebody's listening to you, and that we
Absolutely.
communicate with each other energetically
Yeah.
all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Trees,
Yeah.
people, animals,
Everything.
everything. So,
Yeah, I
pretty
remember
amazing.
talking to my mom and dad when my sister was killed in a car accident. And I said, isn't it interesting how the universe set this all up? And mom's like, what are you talking about? I said, Beth was going through her divorce crazies, you know. She'd
Yeah,
been married when she was 16 and all sorts of stuff. So she was out sowing her oats, doing her crazy divorce thing and trying
yeah,
to figure out where she belonged and what she was going to do with her life and all that stuff. And she hadn't spoken to me for months. I didn't even know she'd moved back to our hometown. Didn't even know. I thought she was still in Maryland.
yeah.
But she called everybody in the family within the week before she passed. She had just gotten the life insurance from her new job 3 days before.
Wow.
All this stuff was set up. She had just started praying again. All this stuff was all boom, 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 boom,
It
boom.
was just all lining up for her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep,
that's amazing.
it is.
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah,
nothing conscious on her part, as far as she knew, you know. She was just driving home.
yeah, that's amazing, really. I've lost a few people like that too, just driving home.
Yeah.
A cousin and an uncle who were hit by drunk drivers while they were on
Uh,
their motorcycle. So, yeah.
yeah.
But my uncle, it's the same story. My uncle had a dog, and he had come over 3 days before and brought his dog and asked my mom, "Hey, will you watch Sheila?" Was her name. And my mom
Hmm.
said, "Yeah." And he gave her this box, and he said, "Could you hold on to this for me?" My mom said, "Yeah, what's going on?" He's like, I've got some stuff going on, and I just want to make sure that the stuff in the box," because he had roommates and stuff. And she said, "Sure." So I said, "Okay." And I love you. And so looked at me. I love you, Carol. I like love you too. And 3 days later, he was killed by a drunk driver.
Wow.
but there's something, there must be something
The soul knows.
the soul knows, and it's just helping prepare.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's
Yeah,
pretty amazing.
it is amazing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
This is half of another video, Carol.
It is half of another video. That's so funny. Oh my
Wasn't
God.
planning to do a twofer again tonight.
That's so funny. I know. It's what's funny to me is, so there are different times in my life where people pop up, right, that have passed. And I my ex-husband, so I've been married twice, and my first husband and I got married when we were children. But
Yeah.
first loves, that whole thing. We were both just out of high school, barely out of high school. Um, and so we lasted 4 years. When, you know, when you're young, things, you don't have to, whatever happens, happens, right? So
Right.
then you split up. So he had gone his way and I'd gone my way. We were cities, towns apart. And he had really fallen on hard times, and his parents would take care of our children. And we both were not on our feet. And so his parents were taking care of our children for a while. And during that time, he had gotten sick and then moved in with his parents, but he lived in a trailer on their property.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, he died, and suddenly, and his mom found him and stuff. And it was really sad. And
Wow.
he never came to me until just recently, which is, and so
Interesting.
I am 60, and he was 4 years older than I am. So he would be 64. So when he passed, he was 46. And and he just now started showing up.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, they've got their own agendas on the other side too. So you don't know what he's been dealing with or trying to do.
Well, I think that, interestingly enough, I think that as we move throughout our lives, and um, the people around us, like our children, um, they're evolving just like we are evolving. And
Right.
sometimes people that have passed will come in, like, okay, it's my turn. They knock on the door. I'm
Yeah.
gonna, be here for a while, for support, whatever, for whatever reason.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think that anyone can come in from any of our lineages at any point in time,
Yeah.
and just step in at certain times when all of these things
These
come
alignments.
together, the
Hmm.
alignments come together.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's
funny
pretty.
because the guy I was telling you about when I was 18 when the suicide happened. And it was probably 15 years later. I'm trying to think how long ago that was so I can
Yeah.
estimate. It's a long time ago. Probably about 15 years later, I was on the phone with my current boyfriend at the time in the middle of the night. It was like 1 in the morning. Me, I'm a night owl, in case anybody doesn't know
Yeah.
that about me. So it's about 1 in the morning, and I'm talking to my boyfriend at the time, and he had said something about suicide. And my mind, not for him, but
Right.
somebody, some story on the news or whatever. And my alarm clock starts going off. It's 1 in the morning. Why is my alarm clock going off? And so, say the alarm clock. So, back when we had alarm clocks instead of our phones, right? So,
Yeah.
and because I was a heavy sleeper, because I didn't go to sleep when I should have been going to sleep, I was a night owl. My alarm clock's up on my dresser, not someplace I could just hit it from in bed. I had to get up out of bed to turn off my alarm clock. I get out of bed and my hand goes like this. Just before it hits the alarm clock, it goes off. I
Just
says,
trying to get your
"Oh, just
attention.
just saying hi, huh?" And so I told my boyfriend what happened. He goes, "That's so weird." And I says, "He's around. He's just letting me know he's
Yeah,
here and still watching and he's still close. It's
yeah,
okay."
yeah. That's pretty amazing. When my mother-in-law passed, um, my second mother-in-law, when she passed, she was at a hospital when she passed, and so I'd gone to the house because I'd been taking care of her. She had broken her foot, and actually there were complications to that. So anyway, she ended up in the hospital, and so I was still at her house watering her plants, and um, she had a dog. I was taking care of her dog, and when she passed, I was I'd gone from the hospital to her place because I had to take care of her dog, and her clock next to her bed, the time was 11:54, and I just looked at it, and I'm doing my thing, you know, at the house, walking the dog, feeding the dog, and I go back in there, and the clock was still at 11:54. I'm like, that's weird. It's stuck. She'd been using this clock forever. She never had, it was one of those. It was just a small one of the what are the analog clocks or
Yeah.
whatever, had the lights or whatever. And so that clock stayed like that for days and days. And I didn't want to unplug it because I wanted to see how long it would be. It would be like at 11:54, right? I'm like, this is crazy. This is crazy. So finally, when we were packing her things up, I unplugged the clock and I took it with me.
Yeah,
And I
I would
thought, I
too.
just know that that was a message. And it was a message for
What
me
was the
because
message, I
nobody else,
wonder?
well, I will tell you, I didn't know what the message was. But when I started going through this process of becoming more aware, that number would show up all the time. Like I would look at the time, it would be 11:54.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay.
Right?
She was just setting up the signal.
She was setting up the signal so that I would pay attention, right? And
That's very cool.
be on
I got
alert.
goosebumps. I love that one.
Yeah. And even to this day, I sometimes I'll just go, I wonder not even what time it is. I'll go to look at my phone like we do and check my stuff and it's 11:54. And I'm like,
That's cool.
that's just so amazing to me.
It is.
Just messages from the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All the time.
all the time.
Oh, I want to have to start doing shorts on those because there's so many of them. We could just talk for 6 hours straight and nobody'd listen to the whole 6 hours. But if we cut them all up into shorts, we
Yeah,
could do a constant run through.
we really could. And we could also add stuff to that too. So I've had some not so fun experiences too. And I've had those all my life.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the things, I was young, um, and I was in my room and the curtains were open and I was just in there playing and I could hear Carol. And I look around, Carol. And I look around, Carol. And so I go up, ask my mom, did you call me? No, I didn't call you. My dog's barking. He's like, maybe we don't talk about this. So anyway, so I get back in my room to play, and a shadow went across the wall. And so I looked out the window to see who was out there making the shadow, and there was no one there.
hmm
And the shadow just went across the wall. So that was one of the first times I was kind of like, oh, I
Yeah.
was pretty young. I mean, there were other things too when I was really little, but that was the first one I think that I ever paid attention to. Oh my gosh, when somebody's calling me, I see a shadow on the wall and there was no shadow there.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're a little kid, you're like, what is that? Mom, somebody was no, at the window.
Yeah.
No, no, there's no one there.
It's funny because I don't remember having those experiences when I was younger. I'm sure I did because how else would I take all of this for just normal, natural stuff, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
never looked at it as weird.
Hmm.
Fascinating at times, but I never thought it was unusual. And I do remember my father at one time, I must have given him a premonition I had or something. I said something's going to happen. And he turned on me and he's like, Don't you be like your grandmother. Don't you dare. I'm like, okay. I'm just telling you what I was told.
Right?
You know, so, but I was so young then that I was looking up at him. So I was probably waist high to him when I said that.
Yeah.
So I would have
Yeah.
been what, 4 or 5,
Yeah.
right? So really little
Yeah.
when he
Isn't
said
that
that.
amazing? That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it scared him.
Well,
But I
yeah,
had,
it is.
it was
So I
funny
have,
because it scared him, but my mom was, she was like me. She didn't talk about it. We never talked about it. We empathically spoke to one another frequently. She'd call me up, but I'll never forget that one day that really, really just makes me giggle every time I think of it. Is I'm at home. I got home from school. I was in high school, and she's at work. And the phone rings, and I had just put water on the stove to start making spaghetti for dinner. Why was I making dinner? Because I was told to make dinner,
right?
right? Mom did not say it out loud, but I
Yeah.
was just doing it. And she says, "You know what I was thinking of?" I said, "Yes, spaghetti. It's on the stove." She goes, "Thank you." Click.
Well, you know what's really funny about that too? It's like certain people that you're around, like builds on that
Yeah,
energy awareness.
right.
So, like you with your mom, right? It was the same way with my mom and I.
Yeah,
And so, and the funny thing is that someone would knock on, back in the olden days, when people would just show up or they would call you, but
right.
you wouldn't get a text message, right? And someone would show up and I would be like, oh no, I don't want to get the door because, and my mom would say, I'm not getting the door. You have to get the door. That's your friend, Carol. I'm like, but I don't, that sort of thing. So we would know who was at the door.
Hmm.
We would know who was calling on the phone
Right.
and then get, of course, premonitions when things weren't,
Something was
something
coming
wasn't,
coming down the
something was
pike.
coming. Yeah. Or something
Yeah.
was up. It's like, so something's up. We're
Yeah.
going to wait for the call. And then we get the call.
I
So,
remember my mom poking my brother in the stomach who was leaving to go out with his friends in high school. Leaving to go out with his friends. Mom says, "Where are you going?" She never poked anybody. Just pokes him and she goes, "Oh, what's under your shirt?"
ooh.
Shouldn't have had those girly magazines under his shirt going out the door. She was
That's
not
so
happy.
funny. That's
It's
so
just, you
funny.
just know.
Yeah.
Yeah, they say mother's intuition. It's because of that energy. When when a woman is pregnant, the DNA and the energy is all intertwined, and it doesn't
Yeah.
stop being intertwined.
Yeah, I know, which is why when your kids, like Amanda would say, how did you know that?
Yeah.
And when I was growing up, and it probably was the same for you, maybe, where my mother would know something, and I would say, "How did you know that?" And she would say, "Well, I've got eyes in the back of my head."
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Right. And so, and that was even if I came home and she said, "Did you weren't supposed to XYZ?" And I would say, "Well, how did you know that I XYZ?" She said, "Because I
Yeah.
have eyes in the back of my head."
Yeah.
Right. And so it was the same with my kids, especially my youngest daughter.
Yeah.
And yeah, where like you have this,
You
what is
just
it?
know.
Premonition that this conversation is going to happen. I've
Hmm.
had those where I'm like, oh, this conversation is going to happen, and then I hear, hey, can I come in? I need to talk with you. And then
Yeah.
sit there and they're nervous. So this was a conversation I had with my sister years and years ago, and she wanted to talk to me about something, and she knocks on the door, and I open the door, and she says, I have to talk to you about something. And I said, I know, I already know. And she goes, you already know? I said, yeah. And then you don't have to worry about that. Right. So it's like
Yeah.
just these premonitions about these conversations that is pretty cool.
It is.
Well, sometimes I've been like, how do I know? How did I know that?
Well,
How
that's
did
the
I know
thing. You didn't. Your spirit did, and
that?
your
I
spirit
didn't.
talks to, you know what I mean? So it's not
Yeah,
from your brain, it's from your heart, which is
yeah,
connected to everything.
yeah.
And their spirit's talking to your spirit. It's like a big old family reunion all the time.
It
You just don't
is.
realize it. all the gossip's going on in the spirit world saying,
Yeah.
did you see they did that? Yeah, I saw that. You know,
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
don't, we're not privy to it on a psychological, on a, what would you call it? On a conscious level.
On a conscious
Yeah.
level. Yeah. But the interesting thing to me is this. So the more aware of those things, then when you have those kind of like a gut feeling about something, not anxiety, but you get that. For me, it's always in my solar plexus. When I know
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting a call from someone and it doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily something I'm nervous about, but I think that's for me what the location is. Someone's calling, someone's going to be calling and knock, knock,
Right.
knock, but the knock, knock, knock is in my solar plexus. Um, and then I know, oh, I'm going to be getting a call or someone's going to come over.
Right.
But I think that as you become more in tune with that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and you do some of these practices that we're talking about, the following your joy,
Yeah.
um, becoming more present in your everyday uh, thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Where is that coming from?
Right.
It's like
Well, and
learning. You're like
accepting that,
learning your. Oh, go ahead.
no, it's like accepting, like you said, accepting yourself as more than the physical person that you've been told you are.
Yeah,
You know, you're
exactly.
so much more. And recognizing that you've been practicing this a long time.
Hmm.
It's like fine tuning a piano. Once you've got
Yeah,
the key, it's
yeah,
there, right? But you've been tuning your senses to connect to all these things for years, decades.
yeah. Well, it's that programming, right? It's the belief programming and
Muscle memory
community
and
programming and that kind of thing. So if you're a person like I was, um, taking in my surroundings and then projecting what I thought was happening, right? So when
right.
you project enough and how you understand something is how you're holding that thing, right?
Yeah.
And so pretty soon when these things get heavy, they get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And here you are, your spirit, you're less connected to really
Hmm.
what's going on around you, to the energy around you. You're less
Right.
you're less sensitive to those things.
Yeah, because you've
The
wrapped yourself
more,
in layers and layers of insulation from it.
yeah. So as
Oh, I
you,
like that. I like that picture that came into my head with that.
mhm.
I'll have to draw
Yeah,
it.
well, I have this thing, and I've talked to my sister about it. It's the coats that you wear that belong to other people. So you go
Oh,
through your
yeah.
whole life, and you have these beliefs, and you put on that coat of that belief.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a belief that you created; it's one that you
It's handed to
accepted.
you.
Yeah, it was handed to you, and you accepted. And so as you go through this process of becoming more aware and finding neutral and finding joy and loving yourself and loving others and all of that stuff, as you release all these other things, you take a coat off, you look at it, you're like, oh, hey, wait a minute, this belonged to XYZ. Here, take your
Yeah.
coat back. Thanks.
Here.
I
Thanks.
borrowed it. Now you can have it back.
Right.
Don't
I don't need it anymore.
Right. So pretty soon you're taking off all of that, the layers of those things, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, wait a minute. Now I see.
Yeah.
I see more stuff. Oh my gosh. I feel more things, and I'm not all caught up in that false belief
Right.
system
And it's a
program.
process. It's not something like, some people say, I had my awakening.
Yeah.
Okay, no,
You know?
you had an awakening. You can't, it's not done. It's not going to be
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. That's so funny because that happened to me. It's funny is all of a sudden, you go through the first big dark night of the soul.
Right.
It's a first big one. And you're like, OMG, right? And
Yeah.
so you go through that and you think, whew, boy, that was tough.
I'm
But
glad
look,
that's over.
yeah, I'm glad that's over and I'm so much more wiser now. I've got
Yeah.
all this information. Oh my, and the world is a bigger place. And there's kind of like this rush with this
Yeah.
whole, it's almost like a kundalini and maybe even it's a miniature. I've never had one of those grand mal of kundalini. I've never had one of those. I don't know what that is, right? But I've had these little moments where I'm like, oh, and then there was light, right?
Yeah. You can almost
And
hear the
that
angels singing.
you can almost hear the angel singing, and you're
Yeah.
so grateful that you made it out of that. And
Right.
now you're so much wiser for it. And now you want to share to the world your wiseness. And
Yeah.
then something else comes in, and you're like, what?
What? I thought I had
What?
this figured out.
I thought I had this figured out. I was gonna start my own YouTube channel and let everyone know how I had it all worked out. And if you
Right.
just do what you know what I mean. If you just follow my program, right? I'm like,
Yeah. Every
absolutely not. It's hilarious.
everybody's got their own program, people.
But it's funny though. Like when you think about it, in the beginning, it is so overwhelming
Yeah.
when you get past that the big one.
Yeah.
And I think that so much is released that you do feel like, oh my gosh, I've made it. I
Yeah.
made it out of there. That tunnel with all the alligators. I made it out of there
Right.
unscathed, right? And so you're walking down that path, and there aren't any more alligators, and what you're like
See the
feeling
rainbow over the
yourself. You
over
see,
the
right? You see
Yeah.
the rainbow, and then you come over the hill, and you're like, but there's a couple of snakes in the road,
Right.
right? Those look like rattlesnakes. Oh my gosh. And so then you got to get past that
Yep.
and you got to release that. So, like you said, it's a process. And unless you're one of those people that goes and lives in a cave, like, I don't know, what are they, the monks that go there and they sit there in silence? And
Hmm.
unless you do that, I mean, I think that there will always be a process that you will go through
Yeah.
that will bring you to that next
Yeah.
awareness,
Well,
the
because that's
opening.
part of the growth. That's why you're here.
Yeah,
It's why you're here, to have those experiences and to
that's
learn from
true.
them and to help other people through their experiences. It
That's
take They say it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a village to raise each of us. No matter how old or young we are, we're always learning, hopefully.
well, yes, hopefully. And I think that's the point, is that hopefully we are always learning. I In the process of this spiritual awakening, this all of this becoming aware, it's just becoming hyper aware of the energies and things like
Hmm.
that. Um, in all of that, and I really forgot what my point was about that. But everyone is at their own level. So
Yeah.
so we could be presenting what we think is gold,
Right.
right? Gold. And we could hope that this gold that we're presenting is reaching vast um, this vast group of people, but not everybody is in a place where they are in the receiving mode of that
Of that
energetic
particular thing.
transmission,
Yeah.
right? So that was one of those things that I had to recognize. But in recognizing that, I can see myself where I'm listening or learning something, and I say to myself that that's not for me,
Right.
right? And then months later, how come I
Right
didn't
there.
recognize the gold in this?
Yeah.
How come I didn't recognize the beauty of this?
Hmm.
And
Wasn't time.
time,
Wasn't
it's
time.
like, yeah.
You know what it reminds me of when you talk about that? I don't know who that was. Somebody zipped past through the window. Anyway, there's no window there. Just let you know.
Oh,
It's
that's funny.
the windows are behind me, not on the side. Anywho, it reminds me what you're talking about reminds me of when we were teenagers and we would learn something and have to tell everybody because we learned something new. We didn't know that everybody over 20 already knew this thing, right? It's like, oh my God, I just figured this out. Oh, good for you. And then
Yeah.
they're not as excited as you, so you're disappointed. But
Yes.
what do you mean? Oh, we've been doing that for 20 years, sweetheart. But
Yeah.
but it's with anything that you learn can be like that.
Yeah. That's funny that you say that because that's so true. You just get so excited about this thing.
Yeah.
And then you go to share it with everyone and they're like, yeah, well, everybody knows that kid. You're like,
Yeah.
what? You know?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Why didn't
We
anybody
can go
tell
into
me
politics
sooner?
and
Yeah.
talk about somebody that keeps doing that all the time. We won't go there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Making up new words.
Oh, funny.
So it's just fun. I
Yeah.
I love, 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 love having these experiences and realizing that my favorite tarot card, believe it or not, is the Fool.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't know. I know I don't know everything. I am not even going to pretend like I have a clue. You lead me, I'll follow.
Is the full card the first card of the tarot?
No, I think it's a no.
Which card is that? Do you
I
know?
don't I don't. I know what it looks like. I know what it means to me. Let me look it up.
Okay.
First in the major arcana.
So it is the first of the major arcana.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
New
the full,
beginnings, a willingness to embrace the
yeah,
unknown.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's pretty fantastic.
It's
New beginnings. You think of the full card and you think of, I mean,
brand new adventure.
yeah, yeah,
Like the first day of kindergarten.
yeah. Yeah, that's exactly. I'm like, okay, that's exactly. That's amazing. Yeah, I just learned something about a different perspective of tarot. So I was listening to this fella, and I don't really. I used to watch. I had like 10 people that I just loved, and I watched their readings, and I just was like, oh, this is just so cool, and um, and then as I progressed in some of my realization that when you're getting a reading from someone, you're receiving the reading from their energy, right? So there it may be
Right.
coming from like your higher self, but it's also coming from their higher self. But it's
Right.
not just that, it's also coming from their perspectives, right? So we
Absolutely.
all have our own perspectives.
Yep.
And in the development of our perspectives um, is our belief system.
Yeah.
So how a person reads to you your tarot doesn't necessarily mean it's a clean reading because
Right.
everyone has their own life and all this. And I
Hmm.
think it would be, and you'd have to be really, really um, capable of putting yourself out of that reading
Right.
in order to give a smooth, clean reading.
Yeah.
So I heard someone is actually I think yesterday where he was saying that the tarot isn't like it is going to tell your fortune, it's going to read your future, it's going to do all of these things. It's more like a tool that you use for yourself. Now, this is the way he laid it out had to do with like kind of like the tree of life, right?
Right.
But the tree of life, where it shows you the different chakra systems. So whatever that um, schematic or whatever that picture is, diagram, I can't remember. It's the tree of life, only it's in a schematic.
Hmm.
So he was talking, and I haven't finished watching it, and I'm going to because it's very interesting to me how he's using that for each chakra so that you can do kind of like your own personal reading. So rather than have someone do a reading for you, you set up this system where you're going to do this reading for yourself.
Right.
And it covers like every chakra system, which then also coincides with different aspects of your body. And it also coincides with different uh,
Emotions and
emotions, but also the cosmos. So
yeah.
all of that, and just different energy systems. And so I thought I could do that.
Send me
I
that
was
link.
like,
I'd love to watch it.
I'll send it to you. I
Thank you.
will. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very
It's the same.
interesting.
It's the same about the using their because their experience is going to impact how they translate
Yeah.
basically. And it's the same with channeling. Do you,
Yes,
it's the same because what you hear is not a word necessarily. And you still have to interpret that. How many languages do we know? We don't even know how many languages we
you
know.
don't even know. Yeah,
Yeah, they're not all words.
yeah. My when I channel, it's through writing, and it becomes a like a flow state of
Hmm.
consciousness. And so I do that. I mean, I have lots of writing, and what I've recognized is when you are channeling, and this is, I think, kind of hits on what you were just really saying, is when you're channeling, what you're writing has to be something that you can relate to. So I
Yeah.
can look at my first automatic writing things compared to what they look like now.
Hmm.
And you can tell that my awareness of concepts has grown so
Right.
that now when I'm writing stuff, they're more uh, they're more expressive.
Hmm.
They they tell a better story.
Right.
So
Well, because you know the
part of in
language
the
better.
yeah, and
I
when
mean,
I didn't know the
your
yeah
first year
when I
French or sixth.
that's right. In the beginning, it was like pictures. It was
Yeah.
like little doodles,
Right.
and that was because I'm visual. So I see these little doodles, and I'm looking at it. So it took me a while to know what this whole little doodle thing was. And
Yeah.
sometimes I look back and I go, "That's what that means." Oh my gosh!
Yeah. Isn't that
Because
cool?
now I'm my
Now
sixth
you
year.
understand
Yeah, yeah,
what
sixth
what they
year
were
French.
saying to
Yeah,
you.
right. And so
Yep.
now when I write, it's bigger writing. It's more clear concepts come
Yeah.
in the writing, clear ideas. So yeah, I mean, in the beginning, I'd start writing, and it wasn't intentional. I would be writing, and then all of a sudden I'm like, what am I, oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
So now I can sit down and I can open myself up to, okay, now I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to let it flow. So it's
Yeah.
different. I mean, it's like you said, it's like, is this my first year French or my sixth year French, right?
Right.
Parlez-vous français, or like, so it's very interesting what
It
happens
is.
over time with how our awareness develops, our ability uh, to be able to do
Communicate.
readings. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I just get like with readings, it's not like I can sit down and say, okay, I'm going to do a reading for you, because I haven't done it. Maybe if I practice, I don't know, but I couldn't sit there and just say, okay, I'm going to get this information from you. What
Right.
happens is I can be talking to someone, and then I just get the information just flows.
Downloads right into you.
It just downloads.
I did that with my best friend and I get into these conversations sometimes, and you know, she's going through a rough time or something, and we'll be in a conversation, and I start talking, and next thing you know, I'm going, "That wasn't me," and she's like, "Okay, I'm gonna write it down," because you know it starts out she and I are talking, but it ends up
Mhm.
she and my higher self or God are talking, and it's
Mhm. Yeah.
she does the same thing. She's starting to recognize it though. We've only been friends for 30 years.
Jill, it's a good thing she's finally coming around. That's
She's finally
hilarious.
recognizing it happening from
Yeah.
her. And she didn't recognize it before. And I said, that
Yeah.
was a truth that was not from you.
Yeah.
You didn't know that before you said it. She goes, no, you're right. I didn't. And so
Yeah.
she's starting to see it more and more, which makes me very happy.
Well, yeah, and isn't it beautiful to be able to look back and recognize like our friends, and like how far they've come and how far we've come,
Yeah.
and how just it just expands like the whole experience
Right.
of of just living. It
Yeah.
just expands the whole experience because you have a broader sense of not just the, I mean, it's a different, I was going to say you have a broader sense of the world, but it's different than that. You have like a
It's
bigger, a bigger, do you know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying. It's a bigger experience.
It's a bigger
You've got
experience.
more senses than five.
Yeah.
You've got like 20 and you're
Yeah.
seeing so much more. It's like being able to see like a cat. Well, they
Yeah.
see so many different things than we do, right? Or
Yeah.
dogs, they see differently. We
Yeah.
sense differently. They sense differently.
Yeah.
I'm pointing at my cat, even though she's not really physically there, but that's
My
that's.
dog's playing with his toy. That's the squeak. That's
Oh,
so
I can't
funny.
hear him.
Oh.
Maybe I'm too into the conversation. I get tunnel vision,
Mhm.
but but they experience things on a completely different level than we do. And so we're able to experience what we used to originally, the five senses
Yeah.
that we were taught that we had. And as we pull off those layers, it's taking off those coats and opening up
Yeah.
how many different senses. When you feel your when you feel when you felt your aura, when you were first starting, you probably felt it like here, 2 inches from you.
Yeah.
And now if you feel it, it's probably like 4, 6, 20 feet. You can
Yeah.
expand it and
You
you
could
can
expand
expand
it.
it.
Yeah.
I can expand mine all the way into town. I can feel that. I can feel the
Yeah.
irritated lady on Hawthorne Drive. I can feel her right now. Was not looking for her, but she's very irritated. And it's just you can feel all these things
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
open for those.
Yeah.
It's just a bigger experience all the way around. I have to send her some energy. I wasn't looking for anything like that, but that's what happens when you open
You're
up
a
and just
lady.
open it all up.
Yeah. Lady. Oh gosh. Yeah. No,
Ali,
it's
I've really zeroed in on her. She must need some help, so I'll help her after we're done.
all right.
That's unusual for me to just find somebody like that. Like, hello, could you help her?
Well, obviously she's being pretty loud then,
Yeah, 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 yeah. She is. I feel like crying now.
Mm.
I'll help her.
Part of it's part of the work.
It
That's
is
part
part
of
of the
the
work.
job. It's part of the sharing.
I love
That's
it.
that's part of the
Yeah.
process. It's learning
Yep.
all of these things. It's
Oh, gee.
yeah, it's pretty amazing, I think.
Yeah. What a blessing. I
Hmm.
can't imagine going back. Can you imagine trying to turn this? Number one, trying to turn it off. You can't. And number two, wanting to. I would never want to.
No, it's really interesting though. So I would never want to turn it off. I would never want to go back because the freedom that you feel once it's once you begin the process, you feel these bursts of freedom.
Yeah.
And then you're walking through that. And you're like, oh, this feels so good. And then you come up to another little bubble and hit another little burst of freedom. You're just right. So I'm like, that's so beautiful. And
Like champagne.
there's no going back. There
Yeah.
isn't, because as you move forward, nothing's behind you
Right.
anymore. Right.
Yeah.
There's nothing behind you. You know, so it's like walking through jello. As you walk through jello, it closes up
Yeah.
behind you. You can't, even you turn around and you're
Right.
still stuck in it, right? So I'm like, oh, that's what I'm picturing in my mind. It's like walking through jello, right? And it's delicious. It's going this way, so forward. But one of the things that happens that's interesting, that's been interesting to me, is in my experiences, I don't know how to. I'm searching for the words because it's like this. So once you get to a certain point, and then you have conversations with people who energetically are closed down, the ability to have conversations of any meaning where people are so blocked sometimes
Yeah.
that when you're having conversations with certain people, and I think it's a lot of people, right? It's a lot of
Yeah.
people, and which is why I kind of self isolate. So I have like I hang out with my family, basically.
Right.
I have some really good friends, but socially, it's difficult to go out socially with
Mhm.
feeling expansive, and then you go to areas where there's restriction, and it's the
Yeah.
people in those groups where they're really constricted.
Yeah.
So that part, I feel like there will be a point where I navigate through that process I'm going through now.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
It is
Learning to
because
filter them out and have
yeah,
compassion for them because they're hurting or they wouldn't
mhm,
have those up. Those walls are to protect them.
yeah. Well, definitely. I mean, the walls are to protect them, and it's in a lot of situations, I'm the weirdo. I was like,
Oh, you're preaching to the choir there,
it's like,
sweetheart.
you know what I mean? It's like, well, yeah. So it's like you go, and you're like having a good time, or you're out with your, like in my situation, it would be with my sister or something, and you go out, um, and the truth is what happens, and there's power in numbers now. So I'm saying this, but when my sister and I go somewhere, so let's say we went out and she has a friend who lives in a very small town, and there's a it's not a bar, it's like a diner, but there's a bar there, and
Uh-huh.
all the people that want to hang out and socialize, they go there, play pool and stuff, darts and things. And so my sister and I've gone there a few times. And so anyway, so when you go with someone else whose energy is more expansive, people are kind of drawn to you then.
Right.
It's a lot
Yeah.
more yeah. So if
Well,
it's
it's
just
hard to ignore that kind of energy.
it's very hard to ignore that kind of energy.
And it's not
Very
just
hard.
a one plus a one because what's the word? It's an exponential growth in the
Yes.
energy. So
Yeah.
it really makes it, that's how our
Yeah.
organizations and our energy, if we get in groups, we can impact the entire globe
Absolutely.
positively
Absolutely.
or
Positively.
negatively.
Well, and
Oh,
yeah, it just depends. And yeah,
yeah.
I don't know about you, but my expansed stuff bounces up against the stuff that's constricted, you know.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know how to explain it other than I don't run into very many people who are aggressive or angry or any of those things. And I think it has a
Yeah.
lot to do with the fact that when your energy is so charged or whatever it
Yeah.
is, I don't know what to call it. People with more negative energies don't tend to get in your face.
Hmm.
People have you experienced that? I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
less like less road rage is, I guess, is,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. Well, because well, like attracts like. It's so if
Yeah,
they're negative and you're positive, you're not going to get drawn to one another. You're going to be repelled by one another. It's
yeah,
like the opposite of magnets, right? So if
yeah,
you have two
exactly.
negative magnets, they can't come together.
Yeah, which is beautiful. It's beautiful in that respect.
Yeah, it is.
Hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I need to go help this lady, Carol.
Okay. I think we've had a
She
great
seems
conversation.
very, very, very sad. I'll see what's going on. I'll help her
All
out.
right. All right. Well,
Yep.
we've done a good job here. I think
Yeah,
a lot of fun conversation.
absolutely. I'll
Mhm.
cut the I'll cut it up and I'll send it in the links to you and
Okay. All right.
we'll be all
You
set.
have at it. You have at it.
I will. Oh
I'm
gosh,
excited about it.
me too. When you get a chance to do that logo, we'll switch your logo on that intro and outro screen.
Okay. I'm gonna have to ask for assistance tonight before I go to bed so that I can get a better picture of it in my mind. Because the message I got about that one is, Carol, it's too complicated. Less is more. And I said, okay. All right.
Yeah, they'll
I
work it
said,
out
okay.
for you.
Yeah.
Do you use
Yeah.
Canva?
I haven't used anything. I was drawing it by hand, so
Ah,
I
mhm.
can use Canva. So yeah, I kind of like to draw it first and then
Yeah.
and go from there. So um,
And so when I did the Neuvias one, I
So
pictured it.
it's,
It came to me like, boom, this is what you need to have. I'm
yeah,
like, okay, how do I make that? And I spent like 4 hours trying to make. And finally, I says, I'm gonna go find it on Canva. And I found the
yeah,
design, the background design on Canva. And I said, this will be much easier to put together. But you
yeah,
have to have that clear vision.
yeah,
So once you draw it,
exactly.
you'll have it.
Yeah, I agree. All right, my dear, I'm so grateful for you.
Yeah, same here. Same here. So excited about this. They're wonderful.
Mhm.
Love it. Love it.
Love it, love it. All right, you go help that lady.
Yeah. Yeah. Go see what's going on with her.
All right. I'll talk to
Okay.
you. I'll talk to you later. I'll message you. I'm traveling on Friday. I know we usually meet on Mondays, but I'm watching my nephew, so I'll let you know
Okay.
about that. Yeah. We'll obviously do something next Wednesday for sure, but I'll just message you
Yeah. You got my
when
phone
we
number. You got my text number. Whatever we
yeah.
do, we'll work it out.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right.
Okay.
Thanks. Love ya.
Thanks. Love you too. Bye.
Bye, hon.